Wonder has dual meanings. There is the wonder in thoughtful questioning, curiosity, investigation. And there is the awe and wonder we feel in nature, in relationship with each other, in thinking about the vastness of our future.
In other words,
continue asking how and saying wow.
On his 2003 comedy DVD Circle, Eliezer discusses how we've worn the corners off the word awesome. He describes with great comedic effect how awesome is diminished when it's used to describe things as mundane as hot dogs and socks, and says that we need the old version of awesome. During our community summit yesterday, a phrase caught my attention. The agenda of the meeting was an examination of virtual services and the eventual transition to in-person services. After returning from one of the breakout sessions, when prompted to share, someone had put into the chat how impressed they were with how the transition was made to virtual church without missing a beat. Eliezer's thoughts on the word awesome immediately came to mind. The quote, "without a beat," helped me realize that while what is accomplished by a church community can feel as inevitable as the earth turning around the sun, it is not physics or gravity that makes it happen. It is the result of countless loving choices made that grow our communion with each other. The number of choices truly is countless. For decades upon decades, members of our church community, just like us here today, have worked to create authentic connections with each other and in our community. It is awesome to consider the unbroken connection of love and action from the historical past through today and into the unknowable future. And that fills me with wonder.
thank you, Robin. So, what I invite you to do is to think about wonder as one of our core values. And are there ways that you connect to wonder, and are ways that you connect with wonder as a group, where you engage with our congregation to be inspired by wonder, or where you feel wonder? And you could draw some notes or some symbols on your triangle as that works for you. And if you'd like to share with us in the chat, I can read those aloud so we can hear what wonder thoughts you have today. Where do you see wonder engaging with your spiritual or religious journey? I'd love to hear what you have to share. Sometimes it takes some time for wonder to come into while we're spending some time wondering. I find wonder in my grandkids' eyes. Wonder in finding new sprouts of green in the springtime. Wonder in nature. I find wonder when we used to have our UU hikers group and we would go for walks together on different trails around the area. And at the beginning of some of our walks, we would share what it is that we hope to notice on this walk today. And at the end, we would share what we noticed. And it was a way of having that community time of connecting in wonder together and sharing. We also see wonder in children learning and growing. Love seeing what piques Simon's interest in church every Sunday. So far, he loves music and wonders when there will be more. Finding wonder in the shapes of snowflakes, wonder in looking at the ocean, moonrises, and sunsets. Baby birds. I and my toddler neighbors wondered at bubbles yesterday. Wonderful bubbles. And I invite you to keep seeing how you connect to wonder, and we will move on and make room to see how we connect with our next value, which I believe is authentic connection.
Authentic connection is a way of engaging that takes us deeper than the surface interaction we may have in other communities we're a part of. We seek to be real with one another, to engage with honesty and vulnerability.
In other words,
We know and grow together.
For a while after I came to UU Nashua, I didn't know anyone. I chatted some, but I guess I'm not really much for small talk. I don't care for parties. But one day after doing a caring candle, I was approached by several of you with deep and heartfelt thoughts about what I had said. It was a deep and treasured connection for me. Shortly thereafter, I joined the new Men and Masculinities group, where someone else commented that he only wanted to do this if we go deep, not just chatting or talking about abstract concepts, but connecting to who one another really are and how we feel. And we did, and we still do. A few months later, I took the adult faith formation class for prospective new members of the congregation. And someone there expressed astonishment that I was new because I seemed to know everyone. That was a bit of an overstatement, but I had made meaningful connections with many of you, not small talk. In many ways, we all feel more distant right now, but within the congregation, the weekly Eat, Share, Learn sessions, the reading group I organize, which any of you are welcome to join, by the way, and various other small gatherings also go deep a lot of the time. We've lost many shallow connections during the epidemic, but many of us have been fortunate enough to cultivate deeper, authentic connections as a result.
Thank you so much, Carl. I think I remember that candle, and I certainly remember the Men and Masculinities group. Each Share Learns. What about the rest of you? What are the ways that you live out authentic connection, both here in our church community and in your lives? Let us know in the text chat. For me, while you're writing, I'll just say I've been so blessed to share authentic connection with all of you. I've been here a year and a half, and in some ways, like Carl, it does seem like I've been here forever. And yet I know it's finite, and I'm already sad that my internship's ending in June 15th. I'm so thankful that you all have welcomed me with real and authentic connection. So Carol finds authentic connection being able to safely take risks and make mistakes. Elizabeth finds it in a covenant group. Brenna finds it in the Sunday Zoom lunches with church friends, and looks forward to continuing this practice. Kathy Grossman finds it singing and hopefully moving others by the music. Yes, from my perspective. Lindsay Sylvester finds it reaching out to each other in small ways like pen pals, coffee, emails. Susie Grossman finds authentic connection calling her sister every week. Tess George finds it in our covenant group and with close friends with whom she can share anything. And the Holmes family finds it learning from the joy and enthusiasm of kids in faith formation Zoom classes. And speaking of enthusiastic kids and adults, our next anthem is Give a Little Love, and it's sung by the music team. The video has kids and adults. See if you think it demonstrates our authentic connection.
Courageous community calls us to engage with one another and out in the world with courage. We are courageous in how we are together, and being together gives us courage to do bold work in our world.
in other words,
We are brave with one another.
Hi, I'm Megan Holmes. I've been a member of the church for about 4 years now, and I have to say I am very grateful for our UUCN Courageous community, perhaps more than ever in this particular year. When it was decided that in-person church would be replaced with virtual church, our community did not pretend that things would be normal, but embrace that we as a community would need to find new ways to connect And I believe we rose to this challenge, adapting and learning new ways to connect with one another. Being a parent of 2 7-year-olds, I will admit that I felt it would be difficult to keep them engaged in church in this new remote setting. The component of play and hands-on activity was clearly an important part of my kids' involvement in church and my involvement in the faith formation program. While it's still not the same as being in person, Sadie and the faith formation team have worked so very hard to let the children and youth know that they're being thought of by our church community. Cooper and Jaden get so excited when we pick up their faith formation packets each month. Admittedly, the first pang of excitement is directly related to the fruit snacks that they find inside, which is a nice touch of the snack we used to have in person in our faith formation workshop. But then in our Sunday workshop, as they get further into those packets and the activities that were gifted to them, I love to see the awe in their faces when they open each one and jump into the activities. Our courageous community has shown our family that we do truly continue to be together, even though we are apart.
Thank you so much for sharing, Megan, about the way that you find courageous community. And I wonder, for the rest of you, how do you live out courageous community in your life? How do you experience it in our world? How do you experience it here in our congregation? How do you think we live it out? I invite you to type your ideas in the chat box, and if you are making a little triangle for yourself, you can add them there as well. When I think about courageous community and this congregation, one of the things I always think about is our worship associates and the way that the congregation makes space for people to have the courage to stand up in front of you all and share and be a part of making the service happen. I wonder what other ways we see courageous community. We see it in the outreach of our community dinners. Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay says she's inspired by others in this church to work towards immigrant rights and BLM, just to name a few. Contacting our officials, testifying for our beliefs. Political action, advocating for fair treatment of our brothers and sisters and all people. So proud and impressed every day to serve on our board. Our board members are courageous and thoughtful. It's humbling to be on a team with them. We reach out to the community through our social justice efforts. All this and more is our courageous community. Now let's move to love in action.
Love in action speaks to both the spirit of love in our congregation and the fact that it's not a passive love. Instead, the love we embody is just that. It is embodied in the way we live with each other and the way we spread that love out into the world.
In other words,
we see love and be love.
When I think about our core value of love and action, I think about our children's faith formation program and our love and action workshops. Pre-pandemic, we gathered together and did things like decorated placemats for Meals on Wheels, wove sleeping mats out of plastic bags for homeless members of our community, created decorations for our community dinners to help make them a little more festive. We planted bulbs out in front of the church on the lawn in front of the sanctuary, these pretty little blue flowers that should bloom every spring. They should be blooming pretty soon. We played games, we read stories, we shared and talked with one another. These were the things that we did to show our love in action. Many of them were a little bit more tangible, a little bit more visible. These days, Love in Action looks a little different, but with the same spirit and intention. We've created cards to send to healthcare workers. We've created cards to send to someone just to let them know that there's someone that cares about them. We shared a solstice pageant with the members of our church. We assembled and delivered packets of activities to the children and youth in our church. We played games, read stories, shared and talked with one another, all online. The pandemic has been a reminder for me that putting love into action can take many forms, big and small, whether with others as part of a group or on my own. We can put our love into action by doing things to welcome others, to help people feel like they're seen and they belong, to let people know that we care, to help alleviate suffering, to speak up when things aren't fair, to bring joy and bring laughter. These are the things, small and big, that we can do to show our love for our friends, our family, our church community, and our planet, which we share with all living things. Whether we're doing an activity together or something simple on our own, putting our love in action helps us bring us together and helps make us stronger.
I'd like to invite you all to write in the chat, what are the ways you live out love in action in our church and in your lives? And I'll read some of them out. I'll start with one observation from me. My kids like to fantasize about being comic book superheroes, helping people using their magical powers. But they've come to understand, as I think all of us do, that a superhero is something that we do in real life. Every time we put our love into action and do something to help others in our community at some cost to ourselves. Everything we've given up for the last year to keep everyone safe, continuing to wear masks and limit activities. I see love in the inclusive activities and having children opening the Wonder Box and having the children's corner at the back of the church, the social after the meeting, and now the chat rooms, bringing us all into the church community. Welcoming the stranger and reaching outside of our church walls to individuals. Scrolls past too fast. I'll move on. Providing books in Nashua's Little Free Libraries, our Little Free Farm Stand. There's many more. Thank you all for those.
Thank you all for sharing. Last summer, when your staff came together for our annual retreat, which this time around took place spread out on camp chairs in our cemetery, we took a look at our values, mission, and end statements, the documents that define who we are as a congregation. And we talked together about how we were doing at living them out during these strange pandemic times. We actually went through our end statements one by one and talked about how we were making sure to continue working towards that end in this year. At the end of the conversation, I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised to realize that we were, in fact, continuing to work on all those ends. It didn't look the same as before, but we were still heading in the same direction. And I heard that theme echoed in our reflections today. The way we live out these values in virtual church doesn't look the same as it did when we were last in person, but we're still embodying these core commitments: wonder, authentic connection, courageous community, and love in action. This is part of the power of declaring and writing down what it is that you as an individual or we as a community are committed to doing and being in the world. We can come back to these core commitments anytime, in whatever state the world is in, and remember what it is that we are all about. We can make sure that we are still headed in the direction we want to be headed, even when the world tries to throw us off course. I hope that this service helped remind you each of these core commitments And I hope you took up the invitation to write down your own covenant triangle and write down some of the ways that you and we live out those core commitments. Our closing hymn speaks to the value of living your core commitments and letting the way you live those commitments in your life be your legacy.